Hello guys, welcome back to the new videos of Coding Pi. In this video I am going to explain you that how you can build machine learning web application using artificial neural network. So without wasting time, let's get started. First thing first, what you need to do, just open your IDE, that is Integrated Development Environment, and quickly install all the requirements. Here I used to install Gradio, NumPy, Scikit-learn, TensorFlow and Pandas. In my case it is already installed, so it says requirement already satisfied. Now in next step, import all the necessary libraries. Here I import Gradio for creating user interface, NumPy for mathematical computation, Pandas for data ingestion as well as manipulation. From sklearn.dataset I used to import iris dataset. From sklearn.model_selection I used to import train test split. This is used to split our dataset. Then after I used to import sequential approach from TensorFlow.Keras.models. Sequential layer is a linear stack of layer where you can add one layer at a time. Each layer has exactly one input tensor and one output tensor. After from TensorFlow.Keras.layer I used to import dense layer, which is fully connected layer. It means every neurons in this layer is connected to the every neurons in the previous layer. And finally from TensorFlow.Keras.utils I used to import to_categorical. This function is specifically used for classification tasks where you can convert class level as integer. Now in third step I used to load the dataset. This I used to call the load_iris function and store it to the iris variable. Next I have to separate the feature variable and target variable. Feature variable are those variables which are required as input at the time of prediction, and target variable are those which is to be predicted based on feature variable. So iris.data provide all the feature which is to be stored in x variable, and iris.target provide all the targeted features which is to be stored in y variable, and iris.target_name provide all the targeted features which is to be stored in target_name, that is to be predicted. Now in next step I used to display the top 5 rows of the dataset. For this I used to convert data into a data frame. Here Pandas provide a function called data frame. Beside that I used to pass x as feature data. Then iris.feature_name provide all the feature columns which is to be stored in column variable. Then together all these things store it to the df variable. Next y contain specifically 0, 1 and 2 which represent the species of the flower. So I add a species as column to the y. Next, with the usage of map function, I used to map all the species to their respective numbers. Now finally I used to print top 5 rows of the data frame using head function. Here you can see the top 5 rows of the data frame which consists sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. And in bottom you see the type of flower species. Now quickly move on to the next step. Here I used to convert the data type of the target variable with the usage of to_categorical function, which requires data and number of classes. Next I used to split the dataset into train dataset and test dataset. And this step is quite important in order to protect data from leakage. Inside the train_test_split function I used to pass 4 variables which include x, which is called feature as well as independent variable, y, which is called target as well as dependent variable. Here I also mentioned that test size should be 20%. In order to get rid of shuffling, you can pass any number to the random_state. Next I used to build the artificial neural network model with the usage of sequential approach. Here you can see very basic and quite simple neural network. First dense layer is called input layer, second dense layer is called hidden layer, and third dense layer is called output layer. Here I used to pass input_shape which is 4, which is correspond to the 4 features, that is sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. And here I used to pass 10 neuron for every input features. Then finally I used to define the type of activation function. In my case it is ReLU. And if we talk about activation function, what really it is basically control the neurons when to fire, when not to fire. This depend on type of activation function that you may use in your layer. So when the signal is strong and positive, ReLU fire the neuron which contribute to the decision making process. Now for the next dense layer, here I use 8 neurons with ReLU as activation function for 10 input features. Now at last for output layers, I use softmax as activation function with 3 neurons. Here one thing you notice that from last 2 neurons I don't define the input shape, because every output neurons from the previous layers becomes input to the next layer. So that is why I don't need to define input_shape for the next 2 layers. After running the code, now quickly move on to the next step, that is compile and train the model. Here you can see model.compile, which is a method in Keras which is used to configure the model for training. Here I use Adam as optimizer, which is an algorithm that updates the model weight during training. Then I used to define categorical underscore cross entropy as loss function, which is used for multi-class classification problem where the target labels are one hot encoded. Typically, loss function is used to calculate the difference between the predicted distribution and the true distribution. And after I used to define matrix, which is used to evaluate the performance of the model during training and testing. Accuracy is commonly used for classification tasks, which is used to measure the percentage of the correctly predicted label over the total number of samples. Then model.fit method is used to train the model, take training data and adjust the model weight to minimize the loss function. And here I set the epoch value up to 100 with batch size 5 and verbose equal to 0 because I don't want to show the result. Now finally I used to define a predict function because whatever input that I got from the user interface, I need to convert it into an array and then I need to pass to the model to predict the result. So here I define a function called predict underscore iris with 4 parameters which include sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. These parameters need to be converted into an array using numpy and then store it to feature variable. Next I used to pass feature to the model.predict and store it to the prediction variable. Then in order to predict the result, I used to pass prediction to the np.argmax function, then store it to the predicted underscore class. Finally I return the predicted underscore class as predicted flower. Now finally I use Gradio for creating user interface. First I used to define a variable called iFace and then I need to call interface class using Gradio. Then inside that class I used to define a variable called fn where I called predicted underscore iris function. I also define input variable with 4 parameters. Then I need to take output as text format. Next I used to define title, description and theme. Now after running the code, scroll it down and here you can launch the app using iface.launch function. As soon as you run the code, you will get the public URL, then click on it. Wait for few seconds and you will be redirected to the public user interface. Now here you can clearly see that user interface require 4 parameters, that is sepal length, sepal width, petal width, and it also has 2 buttons which is clear and submit, and then when you click on submit you will get the result. Now quickly I fill the requirements and I used to click on submit options. As soon I click on submit I will get the predicted result. So this is how you can build machine learning web application using artificial neural network. I hope this video is informative. Please do like, share and subscribe for more informative videos.